The story starts with some merchants beating demi-humans to do manual labor for them, and a merchant named Banaza also has some demi-humans load some cargo for him. He doesn't mistreat them and also gives them some money for their work. The demi-humans are reluctant to accept the money, and the other merchants think Banaza is crazy for doing so. Banaza gives the money to the demi-humans anyway, and the demi-humans accept it after realizing that Banaza won't take no for an answer. The demi-humans thank Banaza for this, and they go to eat. The other merchants call him a hypocrite for this, and Banaza wonders why there is such discrimination between humans and demi-humans. Banaza's secretary then tries to talk business with him, but Banaza begins to glow and disappears. The scene then cuts to him in front of unknown people, and they welcome him to the magical kingdom of Clyrode, calling him a candidate for hero. Banaza is surprised to hear this and mentions that he is just a merchant. The priest in charge of the summoning tells Banaza that they summon potential heroes from other worlds to help them fight the Dark Army. A demi-human then arrives to access Banaza's abilities, and while he checks his skills, the priest explains that the candidates receive divine blessings from their gods in exchange for returning to level 1 after being summoned to their world. They then check Banaza's stats and find that he has a level of 1, but his skills are far below average. The demi-human mentions that there is no divine revelation, and the mages wonder if they have failed again. Banaza then hears some cheering from next to him and finds out that the other mages have managed to summon a hero. We see that he has god-level stats, and everyone gathers around the hero, and they think that they have to report this to the king. Banaza calls out to them to send him back to his world, but they ignore him. Afterwards, the king calls the blonde knight her hero, and we see that Banaza is still having a hard time coming to terms with this new world. He thinks that he must persuade them to send him back home, and the next day the soldiers load him into a carriage and disrespectfully take him away from the capital. Banaza then remembers that the human told him that the gate he came through is already closed, so there is no way to send him home, and he explained that since it is their fault for not being able to send him back to his world, they will give him special permission to live in the Delaviza forest, but they forbid him to tell anyone about this mistake. While in the carriage, Banaza tries to talk to the demi-human driving it, but the demi-human insists on not talking to him, as per his orders. Banaza asks him if he can tell him about this land, and he wonders if he has a slave contract with the king. The demi-human is surprised to hear this, and Banaza explains that such contracts were common in his old world. The demi-human mentions that Banaza comes from a terrible world, but things are not the same here. He is paid for his work, and there is no difference between humans and demi-humans. Banaza tries to ask him more questions, but the demi-human just tells him to sit quietly. The two continue their journey, and after 20 days they reach the Delaviza forest. The demi-human gives Banaza a bottomless bag from the king and mentions that it should contain enough money and food to last a while. He then tells Banaza to get away from this place if he doesn't want to die. As the Dark Army is said to be lurking around here, he leaves. Banaza thinks that he doesn't know where to run to in this new world, and he notices that the bottomless pouch works the same way it did in his last world. He finds out that it has everything he needs right now, and he takes out a sword first. He notices that it's just a cheap sword, and he comes across some slimes. He thinks that they shouldn't attack him, as slimes aren't supposed to be vicious, but they attack him, and he kills them using the sword. He then notices that his sword is already broken, and he levels up to level 2 after defeating the slimes. He notices that all of his abilities have gone to infinity, but he doesn't know what the symbol for infinity means. He finds out that he can even turn on voice guidance now, and he turns it on. The system voice then tells him that he has acquired several spells after leveling up, and it shows him all the spells he has at his disposal. The voice then tells him that tracking, monster lure, and force recovery spells have been applied to his bottomless bag, and Banaza figures out that this must be why the slime attacked him. He thinks that someone must really want him to die, since this sword is useless as well, and the voice asks him if he wants to die. He can't believe they used magic that's so easy to get rid of, and he thinks he needs to find a safe place to hide for now. He tries to go into the forest, but the voice warns him that the forest is contaminated with a high concentration of evil, and Banaza wonders what that is. The voice explains that it's the general term for liquid or gaseous substances emitted and dispersed by demons, and that it causes serious harm to humanoid races. It asks if he would like to cleanse the forest, and Banaza decides to do so. He finds out that this will consume a third of his mana and activates his purification spell. The spell cleanses the entire forest, but Banaza can't feel anything different, and he suddenly gets a lot of level-up notifications. Meanwhile, back in the capital, the first princess tells the king that it was too cruel to send the hero candidate to Delaviza Forest, since the Dark Army is said to have set up his frontline base there. The king declares that he was just a piece of trash who couldn't be their hero, and then a mage informs him that they have found evidence of the use of the most sacred magic called purification. The king thinks it must have been the hero and declares that he expects nothing less from the man he himself chose. The mage then informs him that the purification spell was used in the forest to the north, not to the south, where the hero is heading. Benaza then notices that his current level is 367, and wonders how his level got so high when he hasn't even killed any monsters. He wonders if you can level up in this world just by using magic, and he still can't figure out what the infinity symbol means. He turns off the level alerts as they only confuse him and wonders how much magic he has left. He notices that his magic has already recovered and thinks that his magic capacity must be really low. He wonders what to do now, as he is not sure if his weak magic has managed to cleanse this place. He thinks that he has also been banned from living in town, and the system suggests him to use shape-shifting magic. Benaza uses the spell, and he changes his appearance. He thinks that now he will be able to go in and out of town without any trouble, and the system suggests him to use teleportation magic to return to the capital. Benaza uses the spell, and he teleports to the capital. He thinks that in his old world only powerful mages could use the teleportation spell, but this doesn't seem to be the case in this world. Then he gets an idea and tries to teleport to his previous world, but as expected, it doesn't work. Benaza then thinks that he needs to earn money if he wants to live in this world, and he wonders if there are guilds here. He thinks that it will be hard to join the Merchants Guild without knowing someone and wonders where he can find the Adventurers Guild. The system tells him the location of the Adventurers Guild, and the scene cuts to Benaza in the guild building. He signs up for the guild under the name Fleo, after finding out that it works the same way it did in his last world, and after signing up he gets a pendant as proof of his membership. He then looks at the quests and has a hard time choosing one. Then he notices a girl asking adventurers to escort her to Delaveza, but none of them are willing to take her on. They mention that the Dark Army has set up its frontline base in the forest, and no one is willing to go there. They explain that she should wait until the punitive force is sent out, and the girl mentions that she wants to get to her family soon since they live near the forest, but they push her aside. Fleo then talks to the girl and mentions that he can take her there if she wants. The girl mentions that she doesn't have much to offer in payment, and Fleo says that it's okay because he's been to the forest and he can just use his teleportation magic to get her there. Everyone is surprised to hear this and think that Fleo must be lying, and Fleo realizes that teleportation is not a beginner's spell. A female royal knight named Balarosa then points her sword at Fleo, and she mentions that he doesn't look like a sorcerer skilled enough to use teleportation magic. She wonders what he is really after, and the others with her wonder if he's a freak who kidnaps young girls. Fleo thinks he needs to clear up their suspicions, and he explains that he is just an adventurer, and he mentions that they can come with him if they want. Fleo then takes them to an alley and teleports them all to the Delaveza forest. One of the girls then asks him if he's a great sorcerer of the highest order, and Fleo mentions that he's just a beginner in magic. Balarosa then apologizes for suspecting him and being rude to him, and the rest of the girls do the same. The little girl then notices that the militium in the forest is all gone, and she says that this forest should be covered in a thick layer of militium. She can't even sense any magical beasts in the forest, and Fleo tries to tell her the reason for this, but the system warns him not to tell a demon that he used purification. Balarosa then points her sword at the little girl, and the rest of her party also prepares to fight. She asks the girl to show them her true form, and Fleo wonders what's going on. Balarosa explains that the guild had posted a notice that a suspicious girl had recently asked for help in traveling to Delaveza Forest, and since she was going to the forest where the Dark Army was, she was essentially telling them that she was suspicious. The little girl then realizes that she is Fenris, the younger sister of Fengril of the Eternal Four. She mentions that she will make them regret talking down to her, and she explains that her brother only sent her to observe the enemy and find food, but since they have discovered her, she will have to kill them. She then releases militium from her body, bringing the girls to their knees. Balarosa mentions that she didn't expect to face someone related to the Eternal Four, and we see that the militium has no effect on Fleo. She then tries to attack Balarosa, but Fleo saves her and teleports her and the rest of the girls back to the capital.